Hi, my name is Brenda Garratt-Glassman. It wasn't that I was actually inspired, it was the fact that my mother and father were sick and tired of me prancing up and down in front of the TV every time there was some kind of musical on. And so my mum just sort of looked around for a ballet school, and she took me in my best party frock with the sticky outy petticoats. I thought I was all of that, and a bag of chips, and my white socks and my black school plimsolls. And I walked into a Saturday morning ballet class, and the teacher had an assistant teacher, and she said to the assistant teacher, "Oh, she's new, hold her hand because we're going to skip." And I'm thinking, skip? I can skip, that's easy. So anyway, the assistant teacher held my hand, and I pointed my foot, held out my skirt, and the teacher said to my mum, "Oh, she's danced before." And my mum's like, "No." She said, "Oh, but she knows how to point her feet." Okay. So anyway, there I go, skipping merrily round the room. Then after the class, my teacher said to my mum, "I want her to take her first ballet exam in December, because she obviously knows what she's doing, and I wanted to come to her primary grade lessons." So I started in September. So in the December, I took my first primary grade exam and got honours, which is the highest mark. So from then, I was kind of hooked, but on all kinds of dance, not just ballet, because, to be honest, at the time, tap was my favourite. At the age of 8, I said to my mum, "When I grow up, I'm going to dance with Fred Astaire." I should have been drowned at birth, really. I mean, how precocious. So the ballet, I was very lucky, because if somebody saw me do something, I was asked to do something else. And at that time, I was not aware of being chosen. It's just like, "Ooh, I get to do more dancing." It didn't really matter what sort of dancing it was, I was able to dance. It just so happened it was always ballet. Yeah, she was amazing. Part of what we call the Blue Rinse Brigade, an old RAD warhorse, Royal Academy of Dance, and she was a major examiner, traveled all around the world, and so she had clout. You know, people, she would go and train people, she would be asked to do demonstrations all the time, and it was always myself and another girl who also ended up at the Royal Ballet School that were chosen to do the demonstrations of the new syllabus. So she was always very careful to put me out there, but also very protective of what she wanted me to do, and very choosy about what she wanted me to do. And she would always, liaise with my mum. "This is what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And my mum, she didn't know, but she trusted my dance teacher to do the right thing for me, because that's what was really important to her. She, from the get-go, she said, "This girl is special. I'm going to nurture her," and that's what she did. And, my career could have gone down the tubes, really, if it hadn't been for her being quite so, positive and negative when she needed to be with certain people, So, yeah, she was a huge influence. And I will always thank her, because she steered me in the right direction. Because I really feel it could have gone, pretty horribly wrong. So, yeah, she was a big influence, a very big influence, a big help all the way through, and always brought a busload of, students to see Dance Theatre of Harlem when we performed in London. And also she'd come and see my West End shows until, she got quite old and then passed away. So, but she was always, always supportive. They were always very supportive. There was never a problem. The problem was the fact that I was also a very fast runner. So whenever I was chosen to run for Middlesex County. And whenever there was a track meet, I had a ballet exam or a competition or a show. So the fact that my family were behind me, because I got into a lot of trouble at school because I was berated in a school assembly for not representing the school in a track meet. The bullying was mostly related to the color of my skin and not the fact that I was a ballet dancer or that I danced. Because when you went into the sort of the competitions, I never got that from the other competitors. I got that from the parents of the competitors. My dance school used to do an annual summer show. And this particular year, I was 16, and she always has had guests to present cups. And this particular year, she had this man who was the director of the Royal Academy of Dance to present the prizes. So he gave me the cup for the most promising. And then he said to my teacher afterwards, well, what are you going to do with her? And she's like, I don't know. So he said, well, I'm going to get her an audition for the Royal Ballet School. So I just rocked up, and it was the term had already started, and I went into a class, and I did the class, and there was actually a vocabulary in the class that I had never covered. There was something particular, and I always remember this because I was kind of embarrassed that I didn't know what it was. And it was something called an entrechat, where you jump up in the air and you beat your feet together and you land with your foot pointed at the back. So I'm like, I don't know. And it was part of an enchaînement. And I said, I've never done that. And so the teacher showed me, and then I did it. And she said, oh, yeah, that's fine. You've got it. So then at the end of the class, I had my interview, and I'm going to be probably very un-PC. The director said to me, well, darling, we are going to train you because you're very talented, but you do realize that you'll never be in the company because you are colored. And I'm like, okay. I was just so thrilled to be offered the place. I thought, just let me deal with this. So next week I started. But what they also did was they got me classes at the Place, which is the London School of Contemporary Dance, thinking that that is where I would end up because black people were not doing ballet. And then after I graduated from the Royal Ballet School, they had actually gotten me into the Alvin Ailey School in New York, because again, that's where they thought I should be. But at the time, the Ailey School was not accredited to take foreign students. So while we were waiting for this accreditation to come through, I was taking class in London just to keep my physicality and my technique up at Pineapple Studios. And I took ballet class with this guesting Canadian couple called David and Anna Marie Holmes. And after class, they said, oh, where have you come from? Where are you going? So I said, blah, blah, blah. I've been to the Royal Ballet School. I'm waiting to go to the Ailey School. And they said, oh, we're about to stage a ballet for Dance Theatre of Harlem in New York. Would you be interested? I'm like, and they said it was the first all-black ballet company in the world. And I'm like, absolutely. So again, I didn't have to audition. I sent pictures, dance pictures over. And I was an illegal alien for a while because, I know, oops. So I went over and, started with the company and then got my green card. And then after a few years, I married an American man who was also a dancer. So it was all good. I was no longer a criminal. And perfect case in point. I mean, I know I'm jumping about a bit, but as thoughts occur to me, there was one particular job that I auditioned for that I really wanted, and that was in this country. And I didn't get. And I was devastated because that's the first job I didn't get. But I had also been offered to be lead teacher for the Royal Ballet's education chance to dance. And I said to the person that asked me, look, I'm waiting to hear about this job, but, I'll let you know. And of course, I didn't get the job, so then I took the Royal Ballet chance to dance. I went to New York when I was 18, nearly 19, and that was literally the first time I'd left home. I went with my teddy bear, and I threw my way up across the Atlantic Ocean because it was my first flight. Came through passport control in a wheelchair with my teddy bear. I know, I was really ill. The next day, but luckily I've got lots of family in New York, so I was staying in Brooklyn. So the next day, my uncle and my mum went with me to Dance Theatre of Harlem, 152nd Street. And we went on the subway, which was interesting. And then I went straight into class, and then Arthur Mitchell introduced me to the rest of the company and said I was from London, Royal Ballet School, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And that very day I started to learn the rep because the company were about to go on tour. Because at that time, I think we used to work 9-10 months of the year, whether we were in a theatre somewhere or whether we were on a college campus somewhere. And I remember we were at the first tour I was on, we were staying in a hotel, and I was being taught the rep in the hotel bedroom and in the corridors to perform the next day. So the fact that I was a quick study was advantageous. It was never a problem for me to learn anything. And then in the November of that first year, the company were invited to do the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And we were dressed in little white leotards and little tiny skirts in November in New York, on point. And it was sleeting, and it was freezing. And that was I was very homesick, and that was the first time I really cried because I was miserably homesick, and I was cold, and I don't do cold well. Because I left the Royal Ballet School in 77. No, I'm wrong. 73 to 77. 73. 1973. I was nearly 19. And yes, I'm an old lady. And yes, I do have my pension. I came back to England pregnant, 1980. Had my first daughter. Then I had my second son. And in between that, I did nothing. I was just a mummy. And as I said before, I auditioned for Indiana Jones when my son was 4 months old. And then I just started auditioning for the West End. So I did Mutiny on the Bounty with David Essex and Frank Finlay. What else did I do? I did a play called For Coloured Girls at the Donmar Warehouse. And again, I was spotted, I was asked to audition, I got, the gig. It was my first acting gig, straight acting, no dance, although I did do a little dance at the beginning just because they thought they'd throw it in there. Gosh. It was with the Royal Ballet Education and Access. And it was originally going into schools in the borough of Hammersmith and Lambeth. And then it went into Southwark. And they'd done their research on the demographic of the children in the schools, looking mostly to get ethnic minorities into this program and to bring ballet to these children that would never have access normally. And so what we did was they chose certain schools with a high demographic of ethnic minorities. And we took in a lecture demonstration. And they used dancers from the Royal Ballet Company. And we would do these lectures where they would bus children in to one school that had a hall big enough. And this lecture demonstration showed ballet, it showed the strength the men needed. They did lifts, they did tricks, they did a warm-up bar, and then they invited some children up to take part. Then at the end, the schools got letters to say, we're coming to your school, we're going to audition year 3, have them dressed in their PE kit, blah-de-blah-de-blah, which is what we did. And we got some really lovely children, one of whom is still in the English National Ballet Company. You might know him, Chevelle. Very special. And also another lovely girl called Patience, who was from Hammersmith. She ended up in The Lion King. I think every job I did was a highlight. I can't actually pinpoint one job that said, okay, this is the best job ever, because I just loved everything. And that is just a series of highlights to me. Yeah, that's a really difficult one for me to answer, to be honest, because I was just always so glad to do what I was doing. So they're all highlights. Well, I got to soloist. So I wasn't a principal dancer, but I was a soloist. So I got some nice roles. And I actually met my husband, who was with American Ballet Theatre. No, the low point was my injury, because it wasn't just my bunions, which caused me so much pain, but I'd also sprained my ankles. And I sprained my ankle repeatedly, and it was always the same ankle. And it was, it meant that I was off dance. So those, career-wise, no low points, but injury-wise, those were the low points, because I couldn't do my career. So, there was, apart from that job that I wanted that I didn't get, but then another door opened, so I can't even call that a low point. There is so much more to people than their physicality. So that kind of makes me angry. Aesthetically, brainwashedly, tall, slim, beautiful arched feet, flat-chested, white. That's the perfect aesthetic. Having been told that, I was never going to do ballet because I had a big butt and big thighs, and I'm going to show you my feet. Number one, that's from my mum, and that's, that is not a flat foot. And I had steel shanks in my point shoes. My feet were so strong. Steel shanks. Because otherwise I would have broken my feet, So it's a nonsense, but it's part of the education and the preconceptions of what the ideal classical body is. If you've got a big butt, it doesn't stop you from being a great ballet dancer. It might not, you might not be able to wear all the different kinds of costumes that are typically a tutu, but it doesn't mean you can't do ballet. So that kind of yeah, that kind of pisses me off, really, to be honest. There's more to people than, perfect body. One of the main barriers is a preconception that black people still, sadly, I think it's getting there, but it's not progressed far enough, I don't think. And I think it actually starts in the primary schools. It starts when you go to school. Children only say nasty things about each other because they've heard adults say it, or they've heard it on TV. If they're taught that everybody is a person, a human being, and they are entitled to whatever, I'm getting on my soapbox now, entitled to the same treatment, the same considerations as everybody else. I think it's a preconception still. I understand why Ballet Black was formed. And I think when it was formed, it was important as a place for aspiring black dancers to go and do class and be part of a company. It's probably still relevant today, sadly, again, for a place for aspiring ballet dancers to go and take class and be part of a company. It sounds trite and cliched, but you need to be yourself. You need to believe in yourself, no matter what anybody else says to you. You need to be resilient. You need to be focused. And I'm going to be very old-fashioned. You need to be aware of how you treat people, how you come across to people. Because if you do a good job, or if you treat somebody a certain way, and somebody else that you're not even knowing are observing you, and they say, I like that person, I want to work with that person. I think it's really important to always be aware of how you are in a situation, especially when it comes to work. For ballet, again, it's so difficult. You've got to be super talented, number one. You've got to look right, still, number two. And yes, you've got to have somebody on your side. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. And a lot of it nowadays is not just talent, it's also luck. It's hard.